Hey viewers, welcome back to the channel. Today, another Warhammer video. This time I'm going to show you how we paint up the Eliminators for my Ultramarines. So, this is the monopost set of Eliminators that come in the Space Marines Combat Patrol. So, last video we did the suppressors. So, this time the Eliminators out of that box. And this one I tried to do it something a little different, something nice. I tried to, replicate the cloak on the back, on the box, right, with the gray kind of urban camo. But then I also tried to do what a lot of guys do, and that is this kind of active camo transition, right? So you basically have the camo cloak as, normal pattern, but then you have it kind of energizing and transitioning to match the terrain. So we can start there. The terrain I used for all my Ultramarines is just the Stirland Mud. And so what I did was basically I painted the cloak the camo color, and then I took some white scar and just kind of did a line following the pattern, like how the pattern actually ended up being, because the pattern was just kind of random as I put it down. So following those lines, I drew basically a transition line with white scar. And then I did successive dry brushes of like Thousand Suns Blue and a little more white scar to try to do a blending to create kind of like an energy glow. It didn't turn out the best. This is my first time trying to do this. But this is how mine turned out. And then once I had that line established, then I just went back and put the Stirland Mud texture paint right all over the bottom to establish that kind of transition. And I'm happy with how they turned out, especially for my first time, right? I think it's a cool idea. Certainly not my own idea, right? Seeing other guys do it online, it's like, oh, that's really cool. I should do that. So, pretty neat. For the camo cloak itself, let's see here, what's a good... These guys are the same model. Yeah, you can see I basically used 3 colors. I tried to go for an urban gray. So I base coated in Mechanicus standard gray as the medium tone. And then for the dark tone, very hard to see, I used Skavenblight Dinge, I believe. And then for the light tone, I used Administratum Grey. Basically these right here. Okay, so that was kind of the idea, is to use these kind of gray tones. And there are other gray tones you can use, to try to get this pattern, but this is how mine turned out, right? I tried to just do random kind of geometric shapes, triangles and whatnot. And so not the best, but again, my first time trying to do anything camo, right? So that's how that turned out. Beyond that, the Ultramarines, so all the usual color palettes apply, right? I used Macragge Blue for the blue. Abaddon Black for all the blacks. For the guns, I was low on lead belcher, and so since these guys are sneaky, I made the metal a little darker, so I used Iron Warriors for the metal. Retributor Armor for all the gold details, right? Mephiston Red for the reds, like the helmet, and for all of the scope lenses. So, let's see, right, we got all the scope lenses are Mephiston Red. Most everything was shaded with Nuln Oil. So this guy's got his head exposed in the sergeant, right? All the flesh. I did the normal kind of light-skinned pattern, right? So Bugman's Glow for the base, and then layering up Kislev Flesh, or layering up Cadian Flesh, and then Kislev Flesh to provide the depth. For the optics for the sergeant there, for his binoculars, as well as all of the night vision kind of goggles, I used base coat of, what's the actual green called? I'm looking over at my paints, pay no mind. Kabalite. Using Kabalite Green, and then layering up like Warpstone Glow and Moot. So here, all right, let me get these in frame for you. Doing it live. All right, so do something like a Kabalite Green, and then for a base, and then layering up to Warpstone Glow, and then Moot Green. All right, so you have those. That's kind of the standard palette for those kind of greens. I think that's all the details. You know, for the parchment, or for the purity seals, Rakarth Flesh for the base, highlight with Palette Witch, and then I use my Micron pen to try to do the, see if it'll focus, to do the text, right? Little text squiggles on it. I think that's about all the details. One thing, I guess the other thing I've noticed, and one of these, this guy, you can see it. It's a mistake I've been making that I've noticed have happened kind of post-process. So I want you guys to see what can happen so that it doesn't happen to you, and I'm trying to correct it as well. But you see that little white sections on the knee, right? Underneath the kneecap and on the side there. Undesirable, certainly. I think that is from doing the decals. So my process for doing decals is I use what are they called? The Microset and Microsol, pretty popular for doing decal sets, right? To help the decal conform to the surface and transition. And then after I do all that, I paint it with Larm and Medium to basically act as kind of a matte, almost like a matte varnish, and where it will take out the gloss of the decal and bring it back to more of a flat finish. But I think I'm doing too much, and I think that is actually medium pooling and drying maybe. And wrong model is what's happening. So that's my theory. So if you do decals like that, be aware that if you let that stuff pool too much or slap it on too much, that might happen. So other thoughts. I try to do this like the box art. The box art on that kneecap, they have a decal of the heavy support decal, which at least certainly in the box or any of the decals I have, I don't have access to one that small. It just doesn't exist on the Ultramarines transfer sheets. I think it exists on maybe the Iron Hands transfer sheet. I think they've got one that's smaller where it'll actually fit, but I didn't have one. So I just put the chapter symbol since the sergeant was going to have his little Ultramarines guy. I just decided to put a generic Ultramarines chapter symbol on there, especially because there's no, you know, these guys, you can't access their shoulders or anything, so no squad numbers, no nothing like that. So that's about it. That's how I paint them. The bases, I've gone over this in other videos, but Stirland Mud, and then Steel Legion Drab for the rim, and then a dry brush of Steel Legion Drab on the top of the base to try to give it a little bit of texture. I don't go too fancy on the bases because I don't care, and I don't have the main materials to do anything fancy. So that's all I got for you. Hope you enjoyed the video. These were fun to paint. I enjoyed painting these way more than the suppressors, as I talked about in the previous video. So thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.